Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining us. I would like to acknowledge the land that we identify as R209 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. R209 and the Indigenous Tourism Ontario honor and respect the land and the people and the treaties. We are extremely thankful for the original tour guides of these lands and all that they have shared. All those that reside, work, and play on these lands are treaty people, and we must honor the treaties in a mutually beneficial and equitable manner. With 1 in 5 Indigenous people in Canada living in Ontario, we believe working together in a mutually beneficial manner will help all Ontarians prosper through the joint development of the tourism industry. Ontario is home to one of the largest Indigenous tourism industries in Canada. RTO9 and ITO are pleased to be working side by side together under an MOU to help advance the Indigenous tourism industry of Ontario. As an ally to Indigenous peoples and a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 will commit to improving the socioeconomic conditions of Indigenous people through tourism by creating space for Indigenous people to tell their story on their terms. I just wanted to touch base on a few housekeeping notes before we get started this morning. First, the workshop is being recorded and will be available for viewing after today's session on our industry site, rto9.ca. There will be a question period at the end, so if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A box, which can be done, it's at the bottom of your screen, or into the chat window on the side. You will receive an email following today's session with a quick 2-minute survey link. And if you're able to spare some time to review the workshop, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our amazing facilitator this morning, Phil Casey.
Well, thank you so much, Bonnie, and to your amazing team for having me here today, and thank you all who attended. So I'm going to let me see how to share screen. There you go, share screen. I think Bonnie, you have to let me share my screen. Hold on a second. Okay, as soon as I can share my screen, I'll be able to start. All right, well, I will start on my slide deck then. Okay, so today what I'm going to be talking about is working with education, how to become a field trip destination. So hopefully after today's workshop, you'll either have different ideas in your head to draw in different field trips if you already are getting field trips, or you'll be able to analyze yourself and see, like, are you field trip ready? Is there anything you can do to further increase field trips coming to you? Okay, so what will I be covering? So I'll go over quickly my background with the education market. I'll go over the importance of field trips, the pandemic's impact on the industry and on the education market, virtual and in-person field trips, what educators look for in a field trip, how to get in front of educators, and of course, like Bonnie mentioned, I will have plenty of time for questions at the end. And even after the question period, if you think of something after, feel free to email me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that way as well. Sorry. Okay, so my background in the education market. So I have over 20 years of working with educators for field trips. Initially, when I first started, a long time ago, I worked at Putting Edge. And the first thing, it just opened, so I had to actually go back and start a whole field trip program from grassroots up. So I understand, so for 5 years I did that. So I understood a lot of the issues that attractions deal with to get field trips to go there. And then that led me for the last 18 years to be able to work directly with all the boards across the province through Attractions Ontario, which gave me a whole different perspective of what teachers might be looking for, but what the boards are telling them to look for as well. Over the years, I've been lucky and fortunate enough to advise countless attractions on getting field trip ready, whether it be a new attraction coming in, not knowing any of the rules of how to like what teachers look for or what the boards look for, to just attractions that have finally got the point where they want to go after school groups and like scouts or guides, whatever, groups like that, and they just don't know where to start. So I've been very lucky to deal with that over the last few years. And because of because I've had the fact to be able to work at the ground level and dealt with so many different attractions and boards over the years, I understand the issues both partners and teachers face when booking a trip. And I'll go over all the different things of it, but like even like dealing with bus companies is a whole different ball wax and stuff. So there's a whole bunch of things that I've been lucky enough to experience and grow with that I hope to share with you all today. Okay, so first of all, the importance of field trips. Students get to learn in a different way. And my slide deck's going to be available after. I apologize. It's unless she's able to, I can share it now. Let's see if I'm able to share it now.
I made you co-host, Phil. Is it not working?
Yeah, maybe it might now. Let me oh, I can now, finally. Perfect. There you go. Sorry. Thank you very much. Okay. From current slide. Perfect. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Okay, so the importance of field trips. So, okay, so students get to learn in a different way. And that is one of the major things why schools and teachers and boards love field trips, is because it actually immerses them in the environment they're trying to teach. They can read about things in books all they want, but it doesn't have the same impact as actually going to a place and learning about it firsthand, or if it's a recreationist or whatever. It always makes it way easier for them to do it. Also amplifies the curriculum they learn in class. Like I said, there's no better way to learn for students in the school board's opinions and the teachers' opinions than actually going somewhere and seeing it firsthand. It's also, for the industry as a whole, it's a major revenue stream. I know like some members, like field trips are pretty much majority of their group visitation. And the pandemic obviously had a major impact in that. So, and it leads to repeat business. A lot of times, and even when a lot of attractions I work at, the goal is, if the students love it, they'll tell their parents about it, and then they'll want to go back. So I always tell the members of people I'm helping that, yeah, look at this as an opportunity to grow your market. Because if people don't know about you and they only know about you for field trips, they might say, oh, this is great, I didn't even know this was here. And they'll tell their parents to come back, and they'll tell their friends to come back. So the field trips really impact a lot more than just the education portion of it. The education portion of it, it also helps our industry grow in just visitation later on. Okay, and the pandemic's impact. So obviously the pandemic was terrible, and we're just getting out of it in the last little bit, but it obviously crippled our industry. And it also, for the students and for the teachers and educators, it really had an impact on them as well, because it was all online. And then when they did go back to class, they weren't able to learn the same way. It had to be, it just went back the way it was, and they didn't have a good avenue to do it. Bus companies, I dealt with a lot of bus companies, and they were barely able to stay afloat because, obviously the school bus business was pretty much based on schools being open and bringing them to and from school and going on field trips. So our industry had to adapt, which I'm very proud of the industry, because they did, and the birth of virtual field trips came from this. Now, virtual and in-person field trips, the virtual field trips was embraced by teachers and school boards. This actually led to a lot of members who couldn't do virtual being afraid that once virtual field trips were introduced, that this would definitely negatively impact their regular field trips. But actually, when the pandemic ended, it didn't at all. The board still see the value and the need for in-person. So it actually, the virtual field trip ended up being a tool that added value to field trips. So a lot of people I talked to that said, well, should we just scrap our virtual field trips we have? I said, no, what you can do with them is you can actually use them as either a lead in to a field trip being booked, like say, hey, look for this, or as I recommend to some people to do, is to do it like almost like a follow-up quiz almost. Did you remember this? Did you look for that when you were there? So it gives a whole different, like if they can do that with their virtual product. But I know for a lot of the members that showed me what they were doing, I thought it was invaluable to do, right? Like a follow-up with the teacher saying, okay, you went to the field trip, now let's look at the video and do you remember where this was? Sorry, what this was. So now I'm going to go through what educators look for in a field trip. And what I'm doing with this is I'm going to be going through each level that I know they look for and explaining it to you. So curriculum versus fun trips. And this is always someone like there's confusion with this. So curriculum obviously is the main driver for where a teacher will bring their students. When they go to the boards, they go to the principals, they have to have some kind of tie for majority of the field trips. But people always ask, but how do I know if I fit? So I always say I have a funny story I'm going to tell you about that. So sometimes you got to be creative with it because when I was at Putting Edge, obviously we used to get like leisure gym, and we would get like gym, or we get a lot of this like the fun year-end field trips or fun like reward field trips. So I started looking because that was very limiting on what I could bring with school groups. So I started going through and looking at what I had and saying, okay, well, we have a lot of amazing art, like the way the courses are made, background stuff. I wonder if I could spin that into art. And then, well, the mini put involved, angles and like force and stuff. So I tried to use it for that. So when I started reaching out to schools again, I said, oh, by the way, we also fit into these categories if you're looking for field trips, like other classes are looking for things like this. And surprisingly, it really caught on, opened up a whole new avenue for me of participants. And I tell members a lot. Sometimes you like, I know like there's like the bricks and mortar ones, like if you're a historic site, right, you have that check because you already history is going to be in there. A Black history attraction, indigenous, things like that, they all fit. Museums, they all fit in their curriculum to begin with. But for other partners, there's still a whole avenue for us that you just have to go and analyze yourself first, and then just see if that will draw them in. The good thing with the curriculum, if you are curriculum-based attraction, and it rarely changes by grade year over year. Every year when I deal with the boards, I deal with all the boards in the province. I keep tabs on them and see if anything changes that might impact our members and our industry. And the good thing is that rarely changes. They might add little things here and there, but they don't tend to remove things unless something major happens. Like I know for a while, school groups would love to do field trips on the water. But now, of course, after a couple of incidences, they pretty much close that. They're just afraid to invest anything and like sign off on them going on like canoeing or things of that nature, which is very sad for industry because like 99.9% of the time it's going to be safe. And then, but that's the way the boards have to look at it, right? So then there's the yearly fun trips, which, like I said, that's what a lot of our members fall into, and you do get a good, like when they start going to you, they do go back to you. So like you have the Wonderlands, you have like local bowling alleys will get it, mini putt got it, outdoor mini putt, like indoor outdoor mini putt, like treetop adventure, things like that, right? And they kind of slide into a bit like gym as well, which is great. And this is mainly just for the elementary I'm talking about right now. But if you look at like secondary school groups, they have clubs and they do school council trips, and that was something too that it's always good to look to see if you can link up on anything with them as well. Secondary school groups don't tend to travel as much during the year. That's what I've been told by the boards and by the teachers we deal with. We have a database. However, when they do travel, they're more likely to go overnight as well with those kind of things. But the school groups do travel, and it's because mainly like parents that drive them or things like that. So that's also good. If you're looking at what you fall under, definitely check that out as well. Travel. This is also something major that teachers have to look into when they're looking at booking. Because the cost of fuel has has gone up so much, it has greatly impacted the cost of field trips to book them. So, I know if any of you have kids in school, you know that the cost of field trips when the kids come home now are a lot more than they used to be, even 4 or 5 years ago, and 5, 6 years ago. And that is largely because the cost of fuel has gone up so much that the bus companies are trying to balance that out. So they can't give as good of a rate because of cost of fuel. So another thing too with bus companies, and which has made it harder for them as well, is that bus companies have to bid to get board contracts. So every year, and I've dealt with the three major bus companies, so I'm taking it from those three, that they have to bid and jump through quite a few hoops from the board to make sure, because it's the same number of buses they have for field trips and for pickup and drop off. So all those things are they pretty much have to nickel and dime themselves down to the point where they just break even a lot of times. Also, lack of drivers in some areas has also impacted field trips because, like I said earlier, they only have so many buses for normal pickup and drop off, and they can't be late on those. They get penalized heavily if they are late. So for a field trip, the teacher has to keep all of this in mind when they are thinking of booking, he or she are thinking of booking it. It's like how they can do it, how they can time it, so it doesn't impact any of those things. In some areas, they might have enough buses, but in a lot of the areas I talk to, they don't, because they have the buses, they don't have the drivers. So some in some areas, which they can do it, have started using public transportation for local trips, since it's more cost effective. I know in like Toronto, for example, you see a lot more field trips on the subway or on the streetcar. And I know even in like small towns now, they said that you'll see them getting on the city bus, because it's a lot less and it stops right by the attraction. So that is something that when you're dealing with a teacher for any of the school boards, these are all things that they have to deal with. So I want to make sure that you going in understand all that, because it does make it harder for the attraction, because they have to make sure like where they fall in that, because of the length of field trip. So because of all these things I just mentioned with the traveling and with the other issues I will deal on further on, the length of time of your experience makes a huge impact on school bookings. So from what I've learned from talking to over 2,000 teachers through our database, but also through principals and all the boards, is the ideal time they look for normally is 1.5 to 2 hours if it's a local field trip, because it gives them time to kids get to school, they get to go on the bus, doesn't impact any of the things they have during the day. Now, if a teacher is traveling from an hour or more away, they expect at least 3 hours of time spent there. Now, when a teacher plans to travel farther away, the board has to approve a bus being taken off of the route. So that's why they say at least 3 hours, because then it gives them an hour to get there, if it's an hour, 3 hours of experience, and a bit longer, and about an hour to get home. Now, if you're trying to get even farther schools to come in, the great thing to do is to partner with other local attractions in your area. And this will lead to a lot more overnight schools, or if they leave earlier in the morning, they'll be able to spend the entire day there, which is great. Like a lot of attractions there that I've dealt with, their experience probably 2 hours is pushing it. So if they work with another attraction nearby that adds another hour and a bit, then all of a sudden you'll have teachers coming from farther away to experience it, which is great. And that's what everyone kind of wants, right? Because once they start going farther away, you'll start another class in that school, start doing it, and it spreads. Parking. So now they're coming to you. Do you have a place for the bus to park when visiting? And this is something that they look for. And if you don't, can the students unload and load up safely? I know I had one attraction I had to go and consult with, and they didn't have a drop off. It was right in front of the building on a major street in Toronto. And just looking at it, I was trying to find a way to stay that doesn't look very safe. And you're going to have a hard time. Like the bus can't stop there very long, so it's going to be very rushed. So eventually they made a side street into a pickup and drop off, which was much easier, not as busy, but the bus couldn't park there. So that was a bit of a knock. And but there's nothing they could do with that because like they're in a very busy area. So like I said, this is something that teachers think of when they go to an attraction for a field trip. A lot of times too, this ties into if they do have, and I'll mention the food part, but I mean if they have to eat their lunch in a bus, they want to make sure the bus is nearby where they can actually do that. Bathrooms. Now, it seems very much like, yeah, of course, but a lot of places don't have bathrooms on site. So a school will get there, you might get them once, but if they see there's not enough bathrooms to deal with so many students, you're gonna have a hard time getting them back. So they might ask you, how many do you have? And are they maintained? And can they accommodate a larger group? If you have 2 porta potties outside, I've been to a lot of attractions that had a couple of porta potties outside. That's fine. You just have to let them know ahead of time so they don't get surprised when they show up and they have a group of grade ones and all of a sudden 10 of them have to go to the bathroom at the same time. So just know all these things when you're thinking about going after certain group sizes. And are they maintained? That's a huge thing, obviously, and that would be anywhere at any attraction. If they go to your bathrooms and they're terrible, they're going to remember that, unfortunately, and that's going to be held against you. Now, a lot of times it is hard to clean them during, I remember even working at, like I said, when I worked earlier, we have like 200 kids coming at the same time. Obviously, you're not going to be able to clean the bathrooms all the time as the day goes on, but just trying to maintain them if you can is a huge deal while they're visiting. Eating. Another major thing, and it's become more important lately with the whole different vibe of everything. Now, do you have food on site? They'll ask that. That's more, but a lot of times they ask you, is it healthy food on site? And that's what I mean. It changed a lot because in the past, like when we go on field trips, you get a hot dog, a bag of chips, a pop, and that was good. But now they don't want the kids to eat unhealthy. So the teachers will ask, like, is there fruit available? Is there vegetables available? Is there dietary restrict, like some kids in my class are gluten intolerant. Are they able to eat at your location? And if they can they bring their own lunch/snacks? I know some attractions don't allow that, but if you do, and if you do offer healthy food, that's okay. If you don't, though, and you let them do that, that is a bonus. And another thing too, I mentioned with the bus, is there a place for them to sit to eat? A lot of attractions I've gone to, they're pulling in 200 kids, 300 kids, but there's not enough places for them to sit and eat. So a lot of times they end up going to sit in the bus to eat, which makes it more important if you actually have a place the bus is parked. If the bus had to leave because there was nowhere to stay, that obviously is not ideal. So keep that in mind as well when you're trying to get larger groups. Just even if you make a space and say you can sit like outside in this area or inside, like whatever you have, you know your attractions better than anything. Now, what I have learned from most of the boards and schools and teachers is that they do rather their students bring their own lunches a lot of times, only because it avoids them dealing with allergies and intolerances, food intolerances and stuff of that nature. So that is also just telling you that's what they tell me. So if you are okay with that, you can mention it to them. That'd be a huge bonus because, like I said, they don't want to deal with having to manage everyone's allergies when they're there, and things of that nature. Inclusion. Now, obviously, wheelchair accessible. If they have any students that have disabilities like that, they will ask you up front. If you don't, they obviously you might lose that field trip, but depending on what they can accommodate them with or them with. But another one too that's really starting to come up is autism friendly. And I know a lot of attractions in the last little bit have started adding autism rooms where if the student gets overwhelmed, they can go into a separate room that's been created to calm them down. I know Ripley's Aquarium spent money on doing one to make it even better for kids. When it's not just for field trips, it's for anybody. But it, it was a good thing to add because it's starting to grow a lot more. Same at Rogers Center. If you go to a Blue Jays game now, they announce it on the screen. If 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 your child is feeling overwhelmed, or even adults feeling overwhelmed, they have a room now for it. So that is something that is starting to grow. I find it's and also if you have staff who have training and dealing with special need guests, that is huge. That is huge, and that's a huge plus for you if you are going after schools, because you might even get because obviously, like most schools have classes that uh, are special needs students, and they unfortunately don't get to go along on field trips a lot of times because of uh, the intangibles that come with it. So if you are able to accommodate that, that's amazing, and you'll get a whole new market out of it. So the demand for this is growing and will become much larger in the future. So like I said, right now it's not obviously the wheelchair access is a big one, but I mean the autism friendly and the rooms for that, it's growing. The schools aren't demanding it a lot yet. It's not one of the things that they're gonna ask all the time, the boards either, but it is growing. So I'm just letting you on the call today know that that's something I've definitely seen starting to grow, and I think will be a demand in the next 2-3 years. And if you do offer any of these now, if you already have things like this now, it's always best to showcase it because, like I said, it's a selling point, and there's not a lot of places that offer it so far. Like I said, I mentioned some of the biggest ones that I know that have it, but not a lot of small to mid-size attractions offer that. And I think that, like I said, it's a huge thing for them. So how to get their attention? So now you know what they're looking for, but how do you get their attention? So I know if you're calling the schools directly, uh, which I had to do in the past, the principal is the main contact at the school. Nothing gets approved unless they approve it. So a lot of times to save time, you just directly ask for the principal or his secretary. She also is like the pulse of the school, and I find that's always been the easiest way to get to get approval, because then he'll go to the teachers and say, I've already approved this attraction, so if you want to go to this, uh, it's been flagged to go. You're good to go with it. Something else that I find that work quite well is teacher showcases. So a teacher showcase at your attraction is, and I did these with great success at Putting Edge, but also did this working with the Toronto Attractions Council and other members, is they do teacher showcases where they will invite teachers to come. They'll close it off for the evening, a slow night, preferably, and you bring teachers in and you show them what you offer. You make a special event for them. How to go about inviting students, teachers for this is normally I went to the schools directly and dropped off a flyer. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want just anybody to show up. And then when they do show up, you have them let you what school they're from. So say you drop off flyers at 5 schools in your area, you want to see which schools were more attentive to going, right? Which will help you knowing which schools are more engaged in doing this kind of stuff. So and they I find the good thing with these as well is they'll normally bring a guest with them, and and this will lead to them other people coming later on. So I always highly recommend teacher showcases. Uh, I've never had a member tell me they've had a bad experience with it. Now you can go directly to the school boards, which is what now I deal mainly with. So the school boards, obviously, you're going to have to jump through. There's a lot more hoops to jump through when you deal with the school boards. But if you are going to deal with the school boards, I always say start with the director of education's office. And I've had the most experience dealing mainly with their assistant. That's how I get approval for the Are We There Yet field trip planner, which I'm going to touch on next. Uh, and it's a and if that happens, they will actually push your message to all the teachers through their either teacher portal, or they will just share it with all the schools individually. Now, like I said earlier, the principal can, even though the boards say it, the principals can still say, I don't know about that, and stop it, which I was blown away when I heard that. But yeah, even if the school boards tell them something, sometimes the principal can kind of kibosh it with certain things of this nature. So working with associations that deal with field trip market as well are very helpful. Attractions Ontario happens to be one of those associations that deal with the field trip market, because of the Are We There Yet field trip planner that this year will be the 18th edition of it, 18th year of it. And it actually gets distributed by all the schools, all the boards across the province through their teacher portals. And it goes out 4 times a year, which is great. And it's a good way to get in front of them. I've done all the heavy lifting for you and got approval. So it's like, it's very hard to do. I'm not gonna lie to you, getting all the boards on to line up with that, but it's very rewarding when I see our members benefit from it. So this is last year's copy of it, and I always try to showcase a different region and different experience on every guide. So like I said, this is endorsed and distributed by all 68 boards across the province. There used to be more, but some of the boards merged into other boards, because I used to have 72, but now there's 68. And this guide was created actually when I first started Attraction Ontario. It was created with input from current and retired teachers and principals. So the way it's set up is it's mainly templates that tell the teacher what you offer. Are you wheelchair accessible, food on site, French speaking, things of that nature. It also goes to guides and scouts, so that they know what's in the area as well. And it's broken down by region. So if a teacher is looking for a certain region, it's very easy to find. And the guide goes directly to the inboxes from the board to the teacher portal. Some of them still have it where it goes to the principal first, like I said, but not very many. Most of them, I would say 90% of them, it goes directly into the teacher inboxes. And today, for everybody on the call, I have a $100 off code for all partners. And if you're interested, I have my email at the end, but the code is GWWS, and that's valid until September 25th of this year. So now, if any questions, I left more time for questions. I thought that might be the biggest thing, but any questions?
I don't see any in the Q&A yet, but
And if you think of something after, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Or if anything you want me to elaborate on more that I talked in this.
yeah, we've got a couple now,
Okay, perfect.
Phil. So
Okay.
how often does Attractions Ontario get published?
So that print piece, or not print piece, digital piece, is published in October. When we dealt with the teachers, a lot of times they told us that for field trip bookings, they really kick into gear in October, mid-October. So which is why we timed it to go then. So there's one printing of it, but it goes out multiple times during the year to make sure it stays in front of the teachers. So it goes October, then we have one right after the holidays, right after Christmas, one around March break, and then one in May, that because some teachers book, if there is one booked in September, normally it's booked in May. So we want to catch all the points where we thought we'd be able to get them.
Okay. We have another one. Do you have any metrics on the AWTY guide? So metrics that measure its effectiveness.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Unfortunately, with the main metric I have with it, because I can't track the guide, they won't let me track it. The boards are very closed off with what I can do with it. So they'll do it for me, but I can't get access to their teacher database or any of their stats. Now, the only metrics I base off of is our members. If they get a good return, and the fact the boards endorse it is a huge sign. But I know when we deal with our teacher database, it goes to them, and that's like 2,000 teachers. We have like an 88% open rate, which is great. But I am working this year because I was told that there's a way to maybe have a tracking like a tracking mechanism in the guide that won't kind of step on their toes, and I can still follow it. Like I won't get their access, but I'll see who opened it. So I'm working on that, which is why I've never raised the price on the field trip planner in all the years. I've 18 years, because I can't really track it. So that's so not hard numbers, but the numbers are in the positive direction, because, like I said, the boards do endorse it, and it does get open, and our members do see a return on it. So, but if I have any numbers, I'll definitely share them if I can get some.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Next, do you have any suggestions on how to get school groups to visit in the field trip off season, so September to April, opposed to the rush only being in May to June?
Yeah, so I find if you're trying to get field trips to go in the quieter time, the best thing to do is to, like I said, look at what you're doing and see if you can tap into a different aspect of your product. So if normally they come to see you for like what I have to know what your experience is. Are you a cultural attraction, or are you a sorry, I just want to get more information so I can answer it properly.
It came up as an anonymous attendee.
Okay, no problem. So I'll just say from different angles. So a lot of times, if they already are coming to you in the busy season, to get them to come during the quieter part, I would say just look to see if there's anything you can offer differently that would still tie in, but wouldn't, but you aren't covering currently. So if you have if you have a seasonal like event, like say like Christmas in an area, or like you have a Thanksgiving event, or things of that nature. A lot of it is like, because they do want to do things in those times, they just, if they already are fixed in their ways, you have to like draw them in with something else you're offering that no they currently didn't even think of. And for that, a lot of times you're going to have to, like I said, go to them directly and let them know you're doing it. Kind of like what I was saying I had to do when I was working earlier. And I think you'll have it good. But if you have any, like if you have any, if you want to, the anonymous person wants to write to me after, and I'm more than happy to brainstorm with you ideas to do that when I have a bit more information.
Okay, great. So instead of calling like individual principals, is there an email list that would be available, do you think, in in any area?
Yeah, like a lot of times what you could do is you could go to the actual board site. Some boards have it easily listed for you, some don't, but there are lists. Like a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go look first to see if there's like a list with an email. They do tend to hide phone numbers. Now I think about it, a lot of times they hide phone numbers, which is weird to me. But for those, you have to actually go and look up, like in your area, this is the board, this is the school, click on the school and find it that way. I wish they all had easy to find lists that here's all the principals. Some do, like I said, majority of them don't. And it's just like a generic email. But I always find calling is better than emailing, initially calling. And then you can send them information, follow up on the email. If you just email, a lot of times they'll think it's spam and it'll go away. So
Okay. Somebody was asking if RTO9 has any funding. No, we do not have funding available to support busing costs for any of the things that Phyllis spoke about today.
And
I
actually, with the busing, follow up with the busing thing as well, is some attractions actually facilitated. They included bus costs in their field trip, uh, but they did try it. And just so you know, if you're thinking of that, they lost money on that because it did not end up being worth it. So just if you're thinking of that, try to get a better deal with the bus with the buses because the few members that did try it had a terrible experience with it.
Okay. Do you know, Phil, of any other similar guides to Are We There Yet? Planner that are in Ontario?
Yeah, well, we had a couple that tried to come from other provinces that actually tried to copy, like reached out to me and tried to copy what we were doing. And they were in some boards. Most of them are gone. The pandemic uh, wiped them out. But they weren't all the boards like ours was. But there are different guides. There is a principal guide that I have partnered with in the past before. I just didn't think it was the right market because we didn't get a whole lot of return from that. Uh, but yeah, I haven't seen one like ours in a while. But there used to be like a couple. But I think the pandemic, because they were so limited to one area, they didn't survive past the pandemic.
Okay.
But if I see any other ones or ones that I think might be a good add-on on top of ours or with ours, pairing with ours, I'll definitely share it with everybody.
Okay. And then what are the costs to be included in your guide?
Well, normally for a half page template, and it's magazine size, it's $500, but you would have $100 credit. And it's a full half page, and I can show examples of it as well after this. I can send examples and the kit. Uh, and it's made that way because, like we said, it gets the best return from the teachers. Everything we do is kind of been aimed at that. And then if you want to add an ad to it, that's separate. But the guide has to be 80% template to 20% guide or ads to pass the board's approval.
Okay, thanks. And
No
Phil,
problem.
do you have any experience with doing field trips where the sites visit the schools?
Yeah, that's actually I have dealt with some for that. Those are great, and a lot of times they will actually bring in multiple classes for that. Uh, I know a lot of the like I know animal like zoos in the area will bring a couple animals into a gym, and they'll have multiple people do that. Or if they have something active, I've seen people have great success with that, and it is a great way to tie in uh, multiple classes. Not tons are doing it, but I find that if you are able to do it, oh, it's amazing. Like, and because the schools don't have to travel and it engages multiple classes. So if you are in the position to do something like that, I definitely recommend it. And for that, you would just approach a school directly and or advertise or advertise if you want people to come far away and you want or whatever your travel window is. Like if you're able to travel an hour away, uh, then working with the guide or with other partners like that, DMOs, RT, whatever, whoever's doing something with that, would definitely help. But those are great, and if you can do it, huge benefit to you.
All righty. You mentioned teacher showcases.
Yep.
If principals are the main decision makers, do you also include principals in these showcases?
Yes, you do. You can if you go to the school because you're inviting pretty much whatever staff is there. I call them teacher showcases because majority of the time they're teachers, but having the principal, if they do go, the multiple times I've been a part of it, principals have not gone. Uh, However, they've been invited, but they haven't gone. But like secretaries will go and like librarians, help staff will go, which is good because if they're endorsed by so many people at one school, uh, the odds are it's going to be the principal's going to say it's okay. Uh, so which is great. And like I said, do them on a slower night. And the only thing you have to make sure of is they tell you what school they're from, because like I said, you don't want people coming in off the street and just saying, "Oh, I'm a teacher," and they're not, because then that doesn't benefit you. So, uh, but yeah, they've worked great. I've like I said, I've never had a member tell me that they've had a bad one. So But definitely invite. Yeah, when you invite this, when you invite the teacher, you're inviting everybody. When you're going to school to invite them, you're inviting everybody.
All righty. This is a good one, actually. They're all good, but do you need extra insurance for school groups?
It depends what your activity is. Uh, I would say I haven't heard people need extra school. If you already have a lot of crowds going in, I haven't heard people needing extra insurance for it. So, but it depends what your insurance is already set for. But it's never hurts to ask. A lot of times the schools have insurance before they go for these things, so that kind of covers you in one way. But yeah, if you already have insurance at your attraction for everyday people coming in and out, then you should be covered. Uh, I haven't heard, and that's a very good question because I haven't really heard anybody have to get extra insurance for it. But I do know that I've heard people say their insurance has covered it, has covered injuries because there's been some injuries in places, right? Like when I worked at Putting Edge, we had kids get hit in the face with putters and stuff, right? And there was no extra. Then the school's insurance was took care of everything. So, but if you aren't sure, check. But like I said, I've never heard anything about that before. As long as you have insurance for your establishment, I think you're fine.
Okay, great. Well, that looks like that's it for all the questions. I don't know if you want to make any final closing comments, Phil.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, well, thank you all so much for being on this, and thank you, Bonnie, and your team for having me. Hopefully, I was able to help the people around this today understand a bit more of what teachers are looking for in the boards, and even what the buses have to deal with on their end as well. And like I said, if you have any questions after this, or you have a question about your own, or you want me to ask me something about your own attraction, like what can you do, I'll be more than happy to help. That's what I'm here for. And my email is phil@attractionsontario.ca. Also, like I said, if you want information on the Are We There Yet field trip planner, please reach out to me. And like I said, you get a special rate if you're on the call today for being on it. It goes out in October. And yeah, no, thank you very much, everybody. And like I said, I hope I was able to help today.
Awesome, Phil. Thank you. And we wish everyone a wonderful day. Thank
Yeah,
you.
have a great day, everybody.